Welcome, Space Explorers. We're excited to have you in Space Center Theater to embark on an incredible journey with the Moonwalkers. Before we begin, here are a few safety notes to ensure a smooth mission for everyone. The theater has 6
The moon has always been our companion, right? A friendly face, a bright, reliable presence that stays in our orbit no matter what. A guide that helps keep us on our axis. Every human being who ever lived on the planet Earth looked up at the moon. And it's given us our seasons. It's given us our day, the length of our month. And we've been moved by it, spiritually. We've invented mythology around it. We've imagined the gods live up there. We've written poetry and stories about it. But in the 50,000 years of our human history, only 12 of us have traveled beyond Earth orbit and walked on its surface. And more than 50 years have passed since we last made the trip in what was called the Apollo missions. And it was destiny and curiosity and our own human nature that made us go in the first place. And it's the same with fate and that same curiosity that make us want to return. In an age which can feel increasingly divided, an international team effort is underway to take a new generation of astronauts back to the lunar surface. They are the Artemis generation, Artemis being the sister of Apollo. And they will undertake a series of missions that will orbit and eventually land at the moon's south pole.
The moon is not just a symbol of thinking about our place in the universe. It's not just a symbol of exploration. It's actually a beacon for understanding where we came from.
One of the things going to space teaches you is that we're all brothers and sisters. And when we work together to do really hard things, it just brings you together in a way nothing else will. This is woven into Artemis.
We have to evolve or we will cease to exist on this planet. And part of that evolution is truly working on solutions that make our planet better. Space is doing that.
When you look at Apollo, it was just an amazing coincidence of world events that led us to putting humans on the moon in 1969. And I think we were way ahead of our time.
The President of the United States. We meet in an hour of change and challenge, in a decade of hope and fear, in an age of both knowledge and ignorance. The greater our knowledge increases, the greater our ignorance unfolds. No man can fully grasp how far and how fast we have come. But condense, if you will, the 50,000 years of man's recorded history in a time span of but a half a century. We know very little about the first 40 years, except at the end of them, advanced man had learned to use the skins of animals. Then about 10 years ago, under this standard, man emerged from his caves. Only 5 years ago, man learned to write. Christianity began less than 2 years ago. The printing press came this year. And then less than 2 months ago, during this whole 50-year span of human history, the steam engine provided a new source of power. Newton explored the meaning of gravity. Last month, electric lights and telephones and automobiles and airplanes became available. Only last week did we develop penicillin and television and nuclear power. And now, if America's new spacecraft succeeds, we will have literally reached the stars before midnight tonight. But why, some say, the moon? Why choose this as our goal? And they may well ask, why climb the highest mountain? Why, 35 years ago, fly the Atlantic? Why does Rice play Texas We choose to go to the moon. We choose to go to the moon. We choose to go to the moon in this decade and do the other things, not because they are easy, but because they are hard.
Look around you. Look at these faces. This is the pyramid of people who turned that choice to go to the moon into a reality. The work of almost 500,000 men and women for the better part of a decade, each of them determined that Apollo would not fail because of them. Driven by the knowledge that the world was watching, that failure was unthinkable, impossible.
If I were to say, my fellow citizens, that we shall send to the moon 240,000 miles away from the control station in Houston, a giant rocket more than 300 feet tall on an untried mission to an unknown celestial body, and then return it safely to Earth, re-entering the atmosphere at speeds of over 25,000 miles per hour, causing heat about half that of the temperature of the sun, almost as hot as it is here today, and do all this, and do it right, and do it first, before this decade is out, then we must be bold.
I watched as they climbed into an elevator that carried them to their spacecraft at the top of the largest rocket ever built. It was the heaviest vehicle ever meant to fly, and it was packed with explosive power. So that if it were to fail on that 16th of July back in 1969, the disaster would mean that Apollo was just too bold a dream.
T-minus 1 minute, 35 seconds on the Apollo mission, the flight to land the first men on the moon.
And therefore, as we set sail, we ask God's blessing on the most hazardous and dangerous and greatest adventure on which man has ever embarked.
On internal power with the launch vehicle at this time. Astronauts report it feels good. T-minus 25 seconds. Seconds and counting. T-minus 15 seconds. Guidance is internal. 12, 11, 10, 9. Ignition sequence start. 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0. All engine running. Houston, Apollo 11 and Saturn gave us a magnificent ride. Roger, 11, we'll pass that on, and it's going to look like you're well on your way now.
You know, growing up, I loved things that made me feel small. I loved looking at the night sky. I loved things that made me ponder this greater universe and my role in it. You know, I was climbing trees to go look at the stars in my backyard and, you know, seeking out little adventures of my own.
Look, I wanted to walk in space, but the closest I could get was in an above-ground pool. I guess